Today, we're going to cover Section 1.5. Finding equations of lines. Section 1.5 is kind of exactly the opposite of what we've been doing. What we've been doing is I give you an equation. So I might give you the equation y equals negative 3x plus 2. So what we've been doing so far is I give you an equation. And from that equation, I ask you to give me information. Similar to what we just saw there on the quiz. The information I might ask for is I might ask you to build a table and give me some points. Or I might ask you to find the slope. Or I might ask you to find the y-intercept. Or I might ask you to draw a graph. Those are all the sort of things I've asked you so far. So, up to this point, I've given you an equation and I've asked you to give me information. Today we're going to go backward. What do I mean by go backward? I'm going to give you information and you have to tell me the equation that it came from. It's kind of completely backward. So let's start with what should be a simple one. I'm going to give you a graph. And I'm going to tell you a couple points on this graph. So here's my graph. What's this point right here? Give me a reasonable answer. 0.3 is a reasonable answer. And how about this point over here? What's a reasonable value for that point? Negative 4.1. All right, so in this case, I'm giving you a graph. There's the picture. I want to know what equation that came from. What do you do?
Y2 minus Y1 divided by X2 minus X2.
And what would that give you? Your slope. Excellent. Whenever you want the equation of a line, the first thing you want to find is you want to find the slope. So we need to find the slope, and we have a nice little formula for that. Like you said, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When we find the slope for this problem, a little check here, should our answer for slope be a positive number or should our answer for slope be a negative number? Positive. How come? Because the line is going up. The line is increasing. So we know our answer should be positive. So what do you do if you figure out the slope and your answer turns out to be negative? You made a mistake. That's right. You got to go back and you got to check it. Right? So what's our y2 number? 3. So we're going to have 3 minus 1 divided by 0 minus negative 4. That's 2 over 4, which we reduce our fraction, that's a half. So our slope is a half. So now we know the slope. And we know the y-intercept too. How do you know we know the y-intercept? Because we were given that as one of the points right there. There's our y-intercept. We know that's the y-intercept. We can see it on the picture. Or we recognize that it's the y-intercept because it has 0 in our x value. So we know the slope. We know the y-intercept. If I know the slope and I know the y-intercept, can I write an equation? Yes. How do I write the equation? I use y equals mx plus b, which is my slope and intercept equation. So my answer is y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Questions on that one? Why is B 3? Because what happens if I have y equals mx plus b? What happens when I plug in 0 for x? What's m times 0? It's going to be 0, and then I'd have plus b. So I always have to point 0, x is 0, y is b. So this number right here always has to be the y-intercept, and for this problem, our y-intercept was right there. So right away, if you have 0, comma something, you always know that that something is the b number. Always. Which is very useful. Now, do you think you're always going to be given that information? No, probably not. So let's try another example where we're not given that information. This time, let's make a line which is decreasing. So we'll have our line look like so, maybe. And again, I want you to just make up a couple points for me. That one and this one. So again, give me some reasonable values for the lower point there. What's a reasonable x and y coordinate for that point right there? -4, 2. -4, 2 could be this one. Okay, let's do this one. This one could be -4, 2. And how about this one over here? I think the x number has to be positive and the y number has to be negative. So what's a reasonable number there? Given that that one's -4, 2, this one looks like it's about maybe 5, -3 maybe? That's reasonable. Okay, so this time we do not know the y-intercept. How do we know we do not know the y-intercept? It wasn't given to us, was it? The y-intercept happens right here. We know where it happens, but we don't know the coordinates. We weren't given 0, comma, a number, unfortunately. That's too bad. That makes the problem a little harder. What do? You still find the slope. That's right. You always need to know the slope. That's not an option. So we find our slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What's y2? -3. We're going to use -3 for y2. So that would be -3 minus 2 over 5 minus -4. This time when we calculate our slope, should the answer be a positive number or a negative number? It better be a negative number because our line is decreasing. All right, well, and I think it is because -3 minus 2 is -5, and 5 minus -4 is 9. So we get a slope of -5/9. Okay, so we know our slope, but we don't know our y-intercept. So how do we find the equation of the line? We're still going to use y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I can write y equals -5/9 x plus b. I don't know the b number yet, so I need to do some more work. I need to figure out the b number. How can I figure out the b number? Do what? Plug 0 in for x. Well, if I plug 0 in for x, I get y equals b. Plug something in for x. What do you want to plug in for x? I could plug in 5, or I could plug in -4. If I plug 5 in for x, what am I going to do with that -3 number? Plug it in for y. So what you can do, if you don't know the b number, pick one of your 2 points. It doesn't matter which one, and plug it in. And then you have to solve the equation. So I plug in, I'm going to use this one here, 5, -3. So I plug in -3 equals -5/9 times 5 plus b. And then I have to get b all by itself. So how do I get b all by itself? I'm going to think of 5 as being 5 over 1. Think of that as being a fraction. So I would write -3 equals, what's -5 over 9 times 5 over 1? Negative 25 over 9, you multiply tops and multiply bottoms. Negative 25 over 9 plus b. And finally, how do I get the b all by itself? Add 25 over 9. How much is negative 3 plus 25 over 9? I can't do it? In order to add, I have to have a common denominator. What's the common denominator? 9. So negative 3 happens to be negative 9 over 9 plus 25 over 9 happens to be, I think, 16 over 9. There's a better way to do that. What's the better way to do that? Multiply everything by 9 and then solve. That would work great, but there's even a better way to do that. The better way to do that is use your calculator. Your calculator is very good with fractions. So if you need to add these fractions, you type in negative 3 plus 25 over 9. Type it in just like it looks. Use the divide symbol to get the fraction. And you hit enter. And your calculator gives you a big, long, ugly decimal, but that's okay because your calculator can give you a fraction answer. Anybody know how to get the answer to be a fraction? Go ahead. You push math, which is over here on the left-hand side, right underneath the alpha button, you push math. The very first option is convert to a fraction. Enter, enter. So your calculator will add fractions for you, negative 2/9. You never again in your life have to add, subtract, multiply, or divide fractions. You may use your calculator. So our B number is negative 2/9. B equals negative 2/9.
Exactly what to do is divide 25 by 9. Is that basically what it's doing?
Right. That's exactly what it's doing. If I type in 25 divided by 9, the calculator is just going to do the long division and give me that answer. And then if I want it to give me the fraction back, I would go math, enter, enter, and it'll give me the fraction back. Okay? All right, so final answer. Y equals negative 5/9 x minus 2/9. There's the equation of that line. Questions on that? All right, I'm going to take that exact same problem and I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. Most students, in my experience, most students like to do this problem this way. But there is an alternative way. And I'll show you that. So we have the points negative 4, 2, and 5, negative 3. So the directions might be find the equation of the line. Through negative 4, comma 2, and 5, negative 3. So it's really the exact same question over again. I just did it in a different way. I didn't give you a graph. Do I need to give you a graph in order to answer the problem? No. The graph is helpful. It's helpful to look at the graph and you can see, all right, my slope better be a negative number. And I can look at the graph and I can kind of guess at what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is right there. Oops, you can't see that. The y-intercept is right there. It looks like it's a small number, and it looks like it's negative, but I can't figure it out exactly until I do some work, and then we did figure it out exactly. All right, so here's the alternative method. You still have to find the slope. You always need the slope. So we find the slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is still negative 3 minus 2 over 5 minus negative 4. The slope is still negative 5/9. Nothing changed there. Exactly the same. Find the slope. Here's what changes. There's another formula for lines. y equals mx plus b is the one everybody remembers, but there is another one. And there's another one which is called point slope form. Does anybody happen to know the point slope form of a line? Okay, everybody remembers y equals mx plus b. Most people don't remember this one. This one is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. What's m? Slope. And what's x1, y1? That's a point. It's any point on the line. It doesn't have to be the y-intercept. It can be any point at all. So I can use this formula to find the equation of the line. And here's the advantage of using this formula. I can write y minus, what's my y1 number? So the number is 2, so it would be y minus 2 equals m. M is negative 5/9 times x minus, if I used 2, then what number do I have to use for x? Negative 4, and then I'm going to have a minus and then another minus. Two minuses make a positive. It would not matter at all which one you use. So another correct answer would be y minus negative 3. That becomes y plus 3 equals minus 5/9 times x minus 5. So there are two different ways to write the equation of that line. What's the advantage of doing it this way? Oh, you might. You might. Here's the advantage as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, that's a correct answer. As far as I'm concerned, that's a correct answer. Did we have to do any adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing of fractions? No. So that's the advantage of this way. When your slope turns out to be a fraction, finding the b number that we did back here, when you use y equals mx plus b, can be a little bit of a pain in the neck. When your slope is a fraction, like it was here, this b number is very often going to turn out to be a fraction. And finding it can be kind of a pain in the neck. If you use this alternative method, then your slope is still a fraction, but you're allowed to leave your answer looking just like that. You don't have to do any adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing of fractions. Now, you normally wouldn't have to do this, but I want to show you that this answer really is the same as the answer we got a minute ago. So how would I do that? Well, what I want to do is I want to take this equation right here, and I want to get y all by itself. So how would I get y all by itself? I could add 2. I think I would do something before I add the 2, though. I think I would distribute that minus 5/9 through. So I would have y minus 2 equals minus 5/9 x. All right, now what's minus 5/9 times 4? Negative 20 over 9. Think of 4 as being 4 over 1. Multiplying fractions isn't too hard. You multiply tops, multiply bottoms. So think of 4 as being 4 over 1. Multiply your tops, negative 20 over 9. And then finally, to get the y all by itself, I have to add 2. Now I think I'll use my calculator. Minus 20 divided by 9, add 2. And again, it gives me a decimal number, negative 0.2222. Math, give me a fraction, negative 2/9, which is exactly what we had before. So this is the same as y equals minus 5/9 x minus 2/9. It really is the exact same formula, it just looks different. I'm not going to do it for the second one, but you can do it for the second one if you want. Multiply through by negative 5/9, subtract 3, and you'll find that you really do get exactly the same answer. I'm not lying to you. Questions about that? Okay, so here's the problem I want you to try then. Same directions, find the equation of the line. Somebody give me a point. Anybody got a point they like? 6, 5. And how about a second point? I'll make one up. -3, 8. So there's 2 points. I want you to find the equation of the line. I don't care if you use y equals mx plus b, or if you use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Whichever method you prefer is fine with me. Here would be my answer. No matter what I need to do, the first thing I need to do is find the slope. You always need to know the slope. That's not an option. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And hopefully you've heard me say that formula enough and you've written it down enough at this point. You've got it memorized. You definitely need to memorize that formula. 8 minus 5 over -3 minus 6. That turns out to be 3 over -9, which I would reduce to be -1/3. Now, this is my personal choice. If this number comes out to be a fraction, I almost always use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's my choice, because I think it's going to be easier. I think for this problem, it works out pretty nicely either way. But because this number is a fraction, I personally would go y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I would write y minus 5 is -1/3 times x minus 6. And I would stop right there. I didn't see any directions that told me I needed to simplify it or write it in y equals mx plus b form, so I don't. I stop and I'm done. But if you did go ahead and simplify it, I think this one works out pretty nice. I think if you did it the other way, you should get y equals -1/3 x plus 7. It turns out this time, even though our slope is a fraction, that number turns out to be not a fraction, which is kind of nice. That happens sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. All right, there's a couple other problems you need to be able to answer about finding equations of lines. So I might say, find the equation of the line through 2, -4, parallel to, oops, spelled parallel wrong, y equals 3/5 x minus 7. So what's different about this problem compared to all the other problems we did today? I only have 1 point. So can I use y minus y1, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find the slope? No, I can't use that formula because I only have 1 point. I only have the point 2, -4. So how am I going to find my slope? Very good. The whole key to this one is this word right here, parallel. What do you know about parallel lines? They have the same slope. Why do parallel lines have the same slope? How come? They don't cross, that's true. But, you know, 2 parallel lines look kind of like this, like my 2 pens. Parallel. What makes them parallel is they're kind of mirrored. Yeah, they're mirror images of each other. But what I think of is they're both increasing, and they both have the same steepness. Slope tells us increasing and decreasing. It tells us steepness. If 2 lines are parallel, they have the same direction and the same steepness, which means their slope has to be the same. So this problem looked a lot harder than it was. I look at this formula. What's the slope of this line? Slope is 3/5. So I really didn't have to do much work at all. The slope was 3/5. Now I have a point. If I know the slope is 3/5 and I have a point, can I find the equation of the line? Yeah, and again, I have two choices. I can use y equals mx plus b, or I can use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Again, this is my opinion. You can do it whichever way you prefer. Personally, since my slope is a fraction, I prefer that way. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's my choice because then I don't have to do any adding, subtracting with fractions. So I would write y plus 4 equals 3/5 times x minus 2, and that would be my final answer. I would leave it just like that. Again, I don't see any directions anywhere that tell me I need to simplify it. So I don't. I'm lazy. I leave it just like that. All right, another problem you're going to see, the exact same directions, so I'm not going to write it all out. Find the equation of the line through 2, -4, perpendicular to y equals 3/5 x minus 7. So now I changed one word. Instead of the word parallel, I wrote the word perpendicular. What do you know about perpendicular lines? They cross in a special way. They cross at a 90-degree angle. And there happens to be a very special rule about their slopes. Close. They're reciprocals and they're negatives. So if you have parallel lines, slopes are negative reciprocals, are the fancy math words. I'm sorry, I said parallel, I meant perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals. Reciprocals, I'm not sure if I can spell that word. Reciprocals, it looks right. What the heck does that mean? Well, that means if the slope here is 3/5, then what's the slope I want? -5/3. You do two things. You flip the fraction over, and then you change the sign. Since this one is positive, we're going to make it negative. If this one was negative, we would make it positive. So the slope we want m equals -5/3. That's what we mean by negative reciprocals. Flip the fraction over, change the sign. All right, so now we know our answer. Once again, I would use y minus y1 is m times x minus x1. Y plus 4 is -5/3 times x minus 2. Questions on that?